and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. The Central Consumer Protection Authority has issued guidelines that service charge payment is optional. Many news outlets have also reported that paying service charge or charging it is banned now by restaurants. We want to get a little bit of clarity on this issue today and also discuss the whole service charge ecosystem, as they say, where it becomes easier for people to understand what this whole issue is all about. Because all people know about service charge is a charge that is added to their bill in addition to the payment that they make for food. Of course, there is an element of tax and now this element of service charges, which can range anywhere between 5% to 20%. It depends on what restaurant it is or what chain of restaurants it is. And I have with me an interesting panel today. May I introduce to you Sudhir Mishra. He is Managing Partner, Trust Legal, who joins me today to discuss this. I have Amir Singh Pasreech. He's Managing Partner, International Law Associates. He joins me today on the show. I have with me Riaz Amlani. He's a restaurateur and many decades in the business, and he will present the industry's point of view. And at the outset, may I request Mr. Sudhir Mishra to give me a lowdown on the issue before we move on, and then Amir Singh Pasreech will come in with a lot of study that he's done on the topic. The introductory comment, Mr. Mishra.
Thank you, Tarun. This is a very interesting and confusing topic today, yes, and much debated in the newspapers. And yes, for the last 2-3 years, a lot has been said about it. But I am a kind of person who actually lives to eat. So you know that I will be eating out all the time. And I have my own points about this entire thing. And I don't understand that why a Kareem's or a Andhra Bhavan will not levy a service charge on you. And there are a lot many restaurants where I go where there is no service charge. And I have no problem in giving service charge personally. Let me tell you, that's very clear in my mind so far Riyaz is concerned. But you know what is happening? There is a trust deficit issue here. Trust deficit is in the minds of the person who runs the restaurant. Trust deficit is in the mind of the customer who walks in. And there is a trust deficit which is in the mind of the government now. And you know what words we are talking about when we are talking about a service industry, where you have to walk in a restaurant for experience? The words which is being talked about in the newspapers is deemed consent. Okay. Now, deemed concept you normally in the boardroom you discuss about a very heavily argued, very heavily articulated contract for some major industrial purpose or whatever. So I think this whole debate is shifting somewhere else. There is a disconnect in the restaurants now, and I'm saying it, and I have a fortune to meet Riyaz personally here. So lot many restaurants actually there is a free dessert policy, because I'll point out something and they invariably come up with a free dessert later, and I say, look, I don't want that. There is a disconnect in the waiters and the people who serve you. They look little disinterested. On top of it, you have to pay the service charge. Sometimes it hurts you. Now, there is a huge need to invest there, that how do we make them accountable, make them happier, make them enjoy that whole experience, which used to happen, which you talked about or I talked about off the camera. That you go to certain places, they are so happy, they will ask you why you are having one paratha, why you are not eating. So people are little disconnected in the restaurant. Customers are a little confused. They go for an experience, and the government is coming in picture because there is a deemed consent issue.
This is very interesting. We discussed this today because the government got into the picture. Over the past years, we've seen many comments by judges also on the service charge issue. Right. The pricing issue, of course, even in multiplexes has been in debate recently in courts, and there have been some orders to that effect. But I will go at this point to Amir Singh Pasreech, Managing Partner of International Law Associates. He will get us into the numbers issue or the pricing issue here. Over to you, Mr. Pasreech.
Thank you, Tarun. I have to say that I am, unfortunately for Mr. Riaz, who has a tougher hill to climb, on the same side as my friend and colleague Sudhir Mishra, because I think this concept of deemed consent goes just too far. I also think that there is a disconnect in the calculation process. You see a child, and I'm thinking of my children, we're all now at the parenting stage, goes to a place and expects to spend 100 rupees, which is what they ordered. They get a rude shock when it's, according to my calculations, it actually comes to 32 rupees more than that. How does this work? There's a little bit of finagle, which is unfortunate, but it's happening in some restaurants. They're adding on service charge to the bill, and then they're adding on GST to the bill. And then on top of that, they're adding on service charge of 12 rupees rather than 10. So if you're looking at a 100 rupee bill, you'll first pay 18 rupees GST, assuming that you're not buying alcohol, which makes it even higher. And then if you add on 12 rupees to that, you're looking at, quite a lot. I think it's coming to 130 rupees. So this is an unfortunate situation which is actually envisaged by law, and there are two aspects to that envisaging this in law, and is it enforceable? The first is this, this consumer Jago concept came out from the government, and they've actually established an authority whose job is to do this. And right now it's very mild. These are just guidelines. The effect of guidelines is to raise it to the level of being something not enforceable in law yet. I have to say that, to be honest, for the sake of the industry. Yeah, it's not yet enforceable in law, but it is certainly normative. Now, once it becomes normative, the concept of normative means the government body has proposed it, has said that this is going to happen. The next thing is if it goes to a court or an authority, and there are the two authorities that it could hit, the regulators defined under the Act. The first being the Competition Commission of India might come down on your restaurant bodies, because under Section 3, this is, if you're of the Competition Act, you as a restaurant body will be possibly guilty. I won't say you are guilty, but potentially guilty, or at least charged with that violation, which the Competition Commission could step in for. And secondly, if it goes to a consumer court, I mean, it's unfortunate that it'll take 2 to 3 years. It's only for that particular consumer, and you'll get 10,000 rupees in costs, but you'll get an order of some kind saying, "Inko, give them back that service charge," which is a ridiculous redressal mechanism. So either way, the normative guideline will get you redressal, but unfortunately, at this stage, we're not somewhere where it's totally illegal, and that line is not defined.
Thank you. So the final word on the issue, are you saying something?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. Therefore, what the whole idea of these guidelines, I have actually seen the originals. Someone has to look at them carefully. What they're against is not only the levy of a service on top of GST, but also the fact you go to a restaurant, the obvious connect is that you're paying for the service. You're not just paying for the price of the food. So why should you be charged separately? It's very obvious, and that's what these guidelines say. So that's my...
So thanks for your introductory comment. I'll go to Riaz Amlani, and I want his detailed reply on this issue. And before I raise any questions, your input on this.
First of all, Tarunji, I would like to thank you very much for inviting me here and pitting me against two of the best legal minds in the country. We are humble restaurateurs, so I plead handicap already. And please forgive me because I am not a trained lawyer. I may say something which is perhaps bad in law. So, first I would like to just talk a little bit about, some of the main, the prejudices that are there towards service charge as an issue. Right? I would first, talk about it from a moral perspective. And then I would like to talk about it from a legal perspective. Both on which, and I can tell you I have no authority on. But let me just try and explain to you why service charge is important to us and why we frame it. Right? So, for example, a large part of the way the restaurant industry operates, we are called the food services industry, right? So there's food and there's service. In the previous, before GST, we were challenged. We were charged for both. We were charged for the food component and we were charged for the service component. Now, it is my submission, sir, that restaurateurs are holding on, especially the more, evolved restaurateurs, the more organized restaurateurs, the guys who are trying to build the chain, are really trying to hold on to service charge as a best practice. And let me explain to you why, sir. Okay, believe it or not, it is at the end of the day, it is in the best interest of the customer and it is in the best interest of the staff that works over there. Okay, now let me explain to you why it is in the best interest of the customer. Now, sir, we go to a restaurant and you order, let's say, a biryani. Hypothetically, it costs 100 rupees, right? So now when I sell you that biryani, it is for 100 rupees. I will write in along my price that we also charge a 10 rupees, a 10% service charge or a 5% service charge or a 15% service charge. Right now, I'm in UK and the norm over here is 13.5% service charge, just to let you know. But let's say for ease of calculation, we say 10% service charge. It becomes 110, right? Now, a large part of the restaurant business, thanks to aggregators and delivery guys, also becomes delivery costs, right? And delivery products. So if you order the biryani in my restaurant, you pay 110 rupees, right? 100 rupees plus 10 rupees service for giving you service on your table, putting crockery cutlery on your table, providing you air conditioning, cleaning the dishes after you, whatever the services that we may provide. When you order, the easiest thing for a restaurant to do is raise the price. And why we even facing this kind of opposition and customer backlash. At the end of the day, you will agree, sir, that we are not running a langar operation. Whatever the costs are, ultimately, even if whatever the charges the government levies, taxes government levies, ultimately it is the customer who will pay for it. Do you agree on that principle with me? No matter what we do. So whether I charge 100 rupees or I charge 110 rupees, ultimately the customer is going to pay for it. The easiest thing for any restaurant is to raise that price. Right? Now, if you raise the price, when a customer is ordering this product from Swiggy or is ordering it from Zomato, he will land up paying 110 rupees. Plus, he will land up paying delivery charges, which are being charged by Swiggy and Zomato. So, in fact, he will land up paying much more. Right? Now, let me talk about the benefit of my staff. If today I am taking service charge and I'm saying that this is going to the benefit of my servers, and I'm saying that very clearly, and I'm taking the money from the customers, saying they're charging service charge, that money belongs to my staff. It belongs to my staff. There's no question about it. I will then, the staff has the opportunity to come to me and say, hey man, you collected this from the customer, but where's my money? I have put it on a bill, I put it on a document. So what we are saying is that we are practicing radical honesty and radical transparency by mentioning that we are charging 10% service charge. Now, the malfeasance here will occur if I have not abundantly made it clear to you, or that I have secretively inserted these charges, where I have making you feel that, I hide it somewhere, or I kind of subtly increase the price. That I agree. That is complete malfeasance, and that is what needs to be stamped out. But when a restaurant is making abundantly clear that we are charging and your fee is 110 rupees, and this is the breakup, this is 100 rupees for the food and 10 rupees for the service, where is the malfeasance? Where is the malpractice? I understand that if you're trying to push it in, that is the wrong thing, right? Now let's talk about it from a moral perspective. I still want to make one more point, right? If I'm trying to make this subtly, try to make you extract more money from you by lying or cheating in some way, it is yes, by all means crack down on it. Okay? But what is happening now from a legal perspective, sir? If I have made it abundantly clear to you that these are my rates for my goods and services which I'm charging you, and I have told this to you, and you're aware of these services, knowing that this is a contract, and you may say that you're pushing it too far, or you're taking this too seriously, or this is. But sir, today, what is the guy can come and say today, I didn't like the chair I was sitting on, so why are you charging me? I didn't like the AC temperature, so why are you charging me? I didn't like the music, why are you charging me? I didn't like the food. Now, sir, please understand this one thing. There is no restaurant in the world which will survive if it gives its customers a bad experience, right? Because the restaurant is not going to make his fortunes by that one meal or by charging that 10% extra. He's going to make his money, he's going to make his fortune by making sure the customer comes back again and again. And word of mouth is so important to us, right? If today I give you a bad experience or made you feel cheated in any way, I will lose out on the 10 other customers you would have sent to me. If my experience to you is poor, and then I should be thrown to the gallows, and I said people should vote with them always. They should not come back to me. They should put it up in social media and saying this restaurant is really, really horrible. But to use service charge as a tool to drive bakshish or to kind of control whether you will get good service or not. And let me tell you one more thing. Today, And a guy who gives service, right? Comes in, gives a guy gets 500 rupees to the waiter today upfront. He will definitely get better service than somebody who's sitting next to you. By discouraging this practice, by making it completely, democratic, we make sure that the entire team, from the valet to the security, to the guy who's cleaning your table, to the guy who's cleaning your dishes, to the chef, are all aligned with one purpose goal, which is to make sure that all customers have a good time. So, in our opinion, it is very democratic. What is happening for us right now? We've just come out of a really terrible time. 2.5 years of the worst period of our life. When we come out of COVID, people have suffered terribly. Okay, whether you believe it or not, we've really come out climbing a mountain. And honestly speaking, compared to any other country in the world, whether it is where I'm sitting in right now, London, where there was furlough and there was, eat out to help out, where the government paid you money, we received zero help from the government authorities. Zero. Right? We had to survive on our own mechanism. Right now, when things are looking a little bit better for us, and when there's an opportunity, where there's no malfeasance, and we're making things abundantly clear that, hey, listen, we're charging service charge, it's going to the people, and when you order things from us from Swiggy and Zomato, you will not pay that 10% more. It will be cheaper for you. I don't understand why it is that we are being singled out, whereas there are 100 other industries today which are charging service charge. All internet companies which are providing you a service of buying, selling tickets to you, or charge you service charge. Banks charge you service charge. They call it by whatever name they call it. Why is it today that restaurants are being singled? And so this is my only submission. I mean, I understand that you may feel that we're trying to cheat, but honestly, hand on heart, we're not trying to cheat our customers. We're only trying to encourage radical transparency, both to the customer as well as to our employees.
Thank you for that explanation. Riaz Aplani, who is a restaurateur, is explaining to us that he is doing it in the interest of transparency. 3 questions come out of this. The first questions, there are a large number of restaurants, and I think many 4 and 5-star establishments that have done away with the concept of service charge. Leading hotel chains of the country don't charge it anymore. Any of these lawyers who go, they know that there is no. Many other restaurant chains have also done away with, but that's one. Second,
Sir, can I interrupt? Please put into sharp contrast what a 5-star hotel charges for a cup of coffee and what a casual dining restaurant charges for a cup of coffee. That's all I will tell you.
That's point taken. Second, Riaz brought in a point about the takeaway companies, which is Zomato and Swiggy. If you order from them, then you don't have to pay service charge. What we have observed in the past 2 years is that they use different menus and different rates online, which is already much higher. Many times, the rate card on Zomato and Swiggy is much more than the cost of that product in the restaurant, which is much more than the service charge also, the included rate together. And that the evidence of that is out. You Google it and you will get all the cards. So that argument goes out of the window there. And
no, sir. One second. That is an exception to the rule. Not everybody practices it. There may be a few people who practice it, and those people should be taken into action. But you cannot take the exception and crack down on the whole industry based on 1 or 2 bad apples for doing this. And if the people who are doing this, please crack down upon this. In fact, Swiggy and Zomato are actively working hard to make sure that the rates in the restaurant are the same as the rates which are available on Swiggy and Zomato. So that argument doesn't stand in service charge.
Okay.
That is an exception, and that is being told and has been actively being stamped out. So let's focus on the problem, sir. Don't say that we're charging extra there. That doesn't hold water, sir. I'm sorry, but that is not an argument. That's not true. So let's not talk about that.
So Riaz is saying that isn't true, but I think when the matter lands up in court, all sorts of issues will come up. This will also come up. So we took this issue up. Now I go to Sudhir Mishra. You've heard Riaz, you've heard Amir Pasrich. Your views on what both of them had said.
So basically, I'm first clarifying to Riaz that I'll shift myself as a customer. So you think that I'm at your side because I have a very accomplished lawyer who is already going into data. He's going to really talk about data. Now, I have few questions here. When I said about the trust deficit factor, I said trust deficit in a very, very, very detailed manner. We all travel world over. We have seen how many places people keep on talking to you. They keep on chatting with you. Tell me that I walk in Select City Walk and I asked for a chocolate ice cream for my daughter, and there was a service charge in a counter. It was not a restaurant. And I actually saw, because we all started checking off it. There's another restaurant, I won't name, very prominent in CP, which will not even write service charge. They write something else, we dot something, something, something. And that's a very popular restaurant. People queue up to get inside there. Third thing is, when a lot of selective profiling happens. When certain people walk in a restaurant, you put a water bottle which is priced 250 rupees. And they are glass bottles. They are not plastic bottles. There are certain people, when they walk in, different kind of water bottles are kept in. And we pay a service charge on that. I'm a kind of person who actually wants to really meet the chef also and other people and pay them separately. Now, if you ask me to pay service charge upfront, you are actually denying a higher payment to people working in the restaurant who could have been paid higher, maybe the kind of tips we hear in Europe and other places. But there is a bias which has been created. That's why I was talking about the trust deficit factor. Now, Riaz, most important part is, let me tell you this, I'm not telling you as a lawyer, or we are not doing a typical debate. Tarun's debate is something which finds a lot of answers. I tell you, you start looking at, you are in London, you know what is the experience there. You would be going to restaurants even I would not be knowing. There is a complete mismatch in the expectations today. People paid because they're too shy to protest. And I'm telling you, people want to go out. I'm somebody who will not order online and eat the same food. So it won't apply to me. My suggestion is we have to start making them the same kind of people like we both talked, that where these guys are involved with us, and you can see that people will pay much more than 10%. They will actually pay 15 to 20%, and they want to pay. And sometimes people pay beyond the service charge. I've seen that.
I want to raise a sociological point here. I'll take this to Amir. Is the lack of tipping culture in India forcing restaurants to charge? Because if they get 100 customers, maybe 90 are not even tipping the staff.
Maybe that is very, yeah.
I don't know. Riaz can comment on this before I go to Amir, because I think this really becomes a Riaz. Riaz, do you think there is a lack of tipping culture in India that forces restaurants to charge service charge?
So, I mean, when we've done, in the past, when service charge was not the norm and tips were the norm, a 10 rupee tip or a 100 rupee bakshish was considered the norm. Typically, a restaurateur used to see 3% typically on the food as we used to have what was called a tip system, where all the workers used to put the tips in a box. Some people used to not, some people used to pocket that money. But usually, and typically it used to work out to about 3%. But sir, that is not the point here, how much Indians are willing to tip or not. The idea is to uniformly distribute it from the people, not just the servers or the chefs, but it is to uniformly distribute it right from the back,
you're saying the
the security,
all the
to the busman. That is why we think it is the best practice. Because it takes a village to give a great experience. Everybody to give a great.
Riaz brought in 3 main points which I realized. He says the restaurants, Amir, are being fair. Before you even enter, the menu cards are outside the restaurant. You can read for yourself. And if you don't want to enter, you don't enter. That's point number 1. Second, he says that service charge is uniformly given to all the staff. Whether all restaurants chains are actually paying the service charge to the staff is a matter of investigation. Whether they pay it or they pocket it, or they simply claim to pay the staff. Because I don't think all chains play, but of course that is a subject matter of investigation. Amir,
investigate that, sir. By all means, investigate that. Please investigate that. Please do. But by doing a blanket like now, which is causing confusion, how are we solving the problem?
Yeah,
Amir, you give the medicine for the problem, not for the symptom.
Point well taken. Point well taken, Amir.
I was just wondering if the monopolist practices of the restaurants will also be adopted by Riaz on this show. You see, you'll see the same thing when you go to the bigger establishments that are very popular. You don't have a choice because The children like to go there because it's popular. It's the place to be. There's a queue outside and they dictate terms. So the walk with your feet and choose your place, that is not happening in the market. It's a dominant, criterion. The second point is, you said it's, equally fair. You've told them, you've given them notice. Somewhere at the bottom, you've written in small print, 10% added on. Somebody might put it in bigger print. Fine. It'll vary between some restaurant that's fair and some restaurant that's less fair. But the fact is, there is nothing wrong with us moving as a country to something better than the UK, where I've been for the last month, in the month of May, June. And I know this practice is more there. But over there, what they did is they fixed it at about 10%, and people used to give it. You point out rightly, Riyaz Sahab, that in India,
sorry,
I was speaking, please.
Yeah.
So you point out rightly, Mr. Riyaz, that in India it was somewhere around 3% as an average. So you don't like us paying your staff 3% as an average. You want to initiate a process of forcing us to pay what you think is right. If you feel that strongly about, following the Western model, why don't you increase your prices, include that 7% in there, and let us pay 3% from our choice, or include it at 10% in your prices. There's nothing wrong. We don't dislike it. And not only that, I think India has to go one step further. What we need to have is an all-inclusive price with GST included, so that you can so that you can see the GST and the service charge and everything, put it in, add it to the soup, add it to the main course. We don't mind. And there's nothing illegal about it. It is not against the law to give a price which is what you will pay in the bill, including service tax.
You've made a fair point. I'll take it to Riyaz. What you're saying is, give me one price.
Just 1 second. I have one more point.
Yes.
So the only thing is that the bill at the end of the day has to reflect the GST component. It can be back charged by the software. There's nothing wrong with that. The second point I want to make is about uniform payments to all staff and distributing it. We don't currently have a legal mechanism to force the restaurateur to pay his staff equally to the cleaner, to the waiter. So we leave that on trust on the restaurateur. And I can tell you, Mr. Riyaz, it is well known that this is not being followed. And a lot of the restaurateurs are profiteering at the cost of the staff. The money is not going in. The other side of it is, if they're not profiteering and they are distributing it, they might be adjusting their salaries. So in both ways, you can do that by having a transparent pricing structure. I'm done.
That's a good point, Riyaz.
And Nizam has GST inclusive rates, I think, for many, many years, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So, sir, I know that you said you had a terrible experience in some cases where there was ice cream served and service charge was charged. Where there is no service, there should not be any service charge at all. Yeah, of that. And, there are various forums. You can also write to the various fora that has been brought up. And even to NRI, and we will take this up strongly. Right? Okay. And we will welcome any legislation that says put the prices all inclusive. We will welcome it. You put that out, you make that. Finance companies, internet companies, why is restaurants being singled out? If there's a law, we will follow it. And you say that, there's no legislation to see whether we are distributing it or not.
Your voice is not clear.
Just one second.
Yeah.
We are very happy to open up to scrutiny for any distribution of service charge. This assumption that restaurants are villains, or they are thieves, or they are robbers, or they will engage in. No, but this is a common trust deficit that we've spoken about. This seems to be a common theme that is running across, where we are made to feel that, hey, listen, we don't trust you. So, and when we increase the price, I'm telling you, it's the easiest thing and the laziest thing for us to do. I will not have to waste my time coming here and talking to anybody or going and fighting court cases. The easiest thing to do is to raise the prices by 10%. But we still feel that at the end of the day, it is going to be the staff that is going to get hurt. And it is ultimately the customer that's going to get hurt, because they will land up paying more for delivery when there's no service provided, because we are in the food services business. So let me reiterate. There are two components to our product that we're offering. We're offering the food and we're offering the service. Where we're not offering the service on an online forum, okay, whatever the delivery guys charge, that's up to them. But When we are not providing service, we would like to discount that price. We would like to give a cheaper price. So we've segregated it. And we are willing to follow any law of the land, provided it is equitable and it's egalitarian, and all companies should then be followed. No other company, why they only restaurants. Service charge should be disqualified from airports, should be taken away from airplanes, should be taken away from banks, should be taken away from the railway, should be taken away from the buses. Why only does restaurants hurt you? Because do you think that we are some kind of whiskey drinking, cigar smoking?
But sir, you are not uniform. There are many restaurants which don't charge service charge. There are many.
That is where, of course, quick service restaurants don't charge service charge because they don't provide service. And that is what we say. Let people vote with their feet. Nobody is forcing anybody, sir. Nobody is creating any kind of.
Riaz has made his point.
May I make one last point? There is no other industry. There is absolutely no other industry where there's so much competition. Right? If you want to go to a cinema, there are 3 or 4 chains. If you want to go to an airline, there are 8 or 9 airlines. There are lakhs and lakhs of restaurants. We cannot monopolize. We cannot do any restrictive practices. There are thousands of restaurants in your neighborhood alone. There is no way that we can cartelize and monopolize. No. So I don't know why we have this.
But we are almost out of time.
Offers more variety. Even in clothes, you'll get maybe 8 varieties of jeans. But there are thousands of varieties available for you in restaurants. So please keep that in mind. No restaurant will hurt itself. We only have a quality and we only have a pricing.
I think we're out of time, but I think the sum and substance of what Riaz said is that this industry can't monopolize.
Yes.
He also says that we write it before you enter, so you have a choice to come or not to come. And the NRAI...
No, sir, we will serve all. And if you say remove service charge, we will happily remove service charge. We will happily do it. We will never ever upset a customer. We will never ever tell you don't come.
That would lead to transparency.
We will get to do a couple of videos on this, because as I understand today, the National Restaurants Association is going to challenge this in the courts. Of course, they will provide reasoned arguments for why they want the service charge to continue. And of course, we will get to see more of this, I think, in the coming fortnight. And it will be a pleasure to have all of you again to discuss this issue as it might, because I think what the NRI is seeking is, they're saying it's not legally binding. This order is not legally binding. My intention to take this up today is because this would lead to a lot of arguments in restaurants from today on, because the news is all over the media. And imagine the kind of fights that may happen today evening, because the restaurants will say that it's not legally binding. And the customer will feel he's the most aware customer and he'll say, no, there is a legal order. The restaurant says it's not legal. So today and the next few weeks are going to be we may see a lot of brawls in restaurants, but let's hope that doesn't happen. But I would like to thank each one of you for sparing time and joining it. And on our next show on this issue, looking forward to see you again. Thank you so very much for sparing time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.